Alright guys, this is Kevin here. I was gonna show you guys something that, I don't know, might seem like a no-brainer for some people it might not be so obvious. So I wanted to show you how I simply mount minerals to acrylic bases to make them look a bit nicer. I also label them using a label maker as well. I'll probably go over that in a different video at some point in the future. But these are some calcites. I guess I can go over what they are. This a couple calcites here from Chihuahua, Mexico. This one's called the area. Well, the pocket that it came out of is called the ice pocket. That's the specific area in the mine that it came out. Is one pocket that was clearer than the rest. The rest kind of look like more white, more frosty, less clear, less like ice. They look more like aragonite. And then this is a spinel twin fluorite. I don't know what this blue is in here. I don't know if it's fluorite, which if it was, be a very interesting, unique color to it, or if it is like some form of orichalcite, because that's the closest resembling color I can tell. But I'm going to mount this one too. Right now I have it on putty, and so that's usually how most people mount their minerals. But I'm going to use a bit of hot glue. So I mean, all I have here is a hot glue gun. Nasty hot glue gun, just cheap hot glue gun, but I made sure I got the really thin, clear hot glue for it. And yeah, I'll give it a try here. So I'm gonna pause it. So I'm just chilling on my bed. I don't know why I do this in my bed, but I have a piece of wood here, so nothing like gets on my sheet or anything. And sorry, I'm kind of sick right now, but basically I make sure that I have the hot glue gun heated up long enough. The way I test it, so just squeeze a bit of it out, and that was a little too hard to squeeze out, so I don't think that it's ready yet. So it needs to be almost liquid, but if you're heating it up and it starts turning kind of a caramely brown kind of color, even just a hint of yellowing, it's probably too hot. So I don't know if you have a gauge control on yours. Most of them do. Like, they have like a temperature meter. You don't know exactly the temperature, but they have different heat levels. And so it's, mess around with it. Really, you're not wasting any money just by squirting some hot glue on a piece of wood or something. Just to get used to what it should look like. But the reason why we don't want it to be yellowed, obviously, is because we don't want it to be too hot, because there is the slight risk of cracking a mineral or something of that nature under the pressure of the heat, just being shocking the crystal, and it cracks. I think that maybe happened to me once with a very sensitive crystal, and wasn't really too big of a deal because it was some very minor thing. And then we're really looking for those really nice, thin, clear bead of glue, because a clear bead of glue is less obstructing and distracting from the eye, because the whole point is to put the focus on the mineral. When you're mounting something on a base, you're trying to give it some presentation, make it look good. So that's kind of the goal here. It's probably about ready. So I can't do this and hold the phone at the same time. So I hope you can see from the angle and the vantage point that you're at. I think the first one I'm going to mount here is probably this calcite that I showed you guys. So I don't know how in focus I can even get it, but I'll try to zoom into that board. And there's two ways you can do this. Like, if you're really worried about the temperature sensitivity of the mineral, you can put a little bit of hot glue directly down on the base where you want it, beat it, and then twist it as you pull away so you don't leave a bunch of wispies. Or if you're not too concerned, you can apply it to the bottom of the mineral and then mount it how you want it. I usually will do it on the mineral first because I feel like it gives me a little bit more control. If it's a larger mineral though, and I really do need to use a lot of hot glue to like mount it, I'll go onto the base first to make a glob of glue, and then I'll kind of press to hold the mineral on it until the glue dries. It dries pretty quickly, but it does take some time. The advantages of using hot glue is it's somewhat easier to get off than like certain other types. Like there's a silicone style glue that people use that you can get off. It's just more of a process, and it probably comes off with less risk, but it's just kind of more of a process, and kind of a lazy person when it comes to certain things. Not lazy enough where I don't like mount and label my minerals, which is, good, but I just only have so much time in the day, and so much investment that I want to put into it. So like these bases are maybe like $2 to $5 a piece, just depending on what you're doing, which quality of them you're getting, where you're getting them from. Like there's so much that varies. You can get it as cheap as $1, but they're not as nice looking. But I'll go ahead and I'll mount this now. And so what I do, I don't know if you can see that. All right, so I'm gonna try to stay low for the camera. But what I do is I'll put like a glob there, and I'll let it settle for a sec, and then I'll center it up where I want it, keeping it parallel. I gotta lift it out of the view because you want to hold the base parallel, level to the ground, I guess you'd say, and then hold the mineral in place where you want it, because that's going to give you the best viewpoint of what it's going to look like when it's mounted. And this one came out okay. It's not permanent or anything, technically. I mean, like, I could remount it. I don't even know if you guys can see how that looks. Probably looks just like a blur. But I'll take some like video or photo of it, how it looks afterwards, and then I just kind of inspect it. Sometimes it could just fall right off if it's not got enough holding it on there. But this one looks like it's got enough glue around it and on it. It looks like it's seated pretty well. It's oriented almost exactly how I wanted it, not quite. So you have a couple options. Like if you're gonna bail out on it, you kind of want to bail out on it now, and then you can like pull it off. But that depends on the mineral that you're working with. Like some minerals you can't even touch with your hands because they're too fragile. So there's a few factors there. This one I'm not too concerned about. It's something I'm reselling. I just wanted to mount it while it was in my possession, so I just did that real quick. I'm gonna go on to the next one. The next one's gonna be, apparently there's a cat dying outside, sorry about that. The next one is gonna be the smaller calcite. It looks like a chicken foot. It's really interesting. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and I'll apply it to the mineral. And sometimes I'll do like a practice run where I just like try to get my hand positioning down, because I'm like, well, if I'm going to put the hot glue on there, I only have a few seconds. Because once you touch it, you have to hold it. Once you touch it to the base, you have to hold it in place for the most part. Shifting it around and stuff like that just weakens the bond, and it's kind of pointless. You're going to have to redo it anyway because it'd be very ugly. So, I'll just kind of think about it, and I'm like, well, if I'm going to put the glue on it, how will I orient my fingers to, like, put it down? Do I have enough time to, like, pick up the base? And so I'll go ahead and put a dollop of glue there. I'll hold the base where I want it, and the mineral, and then I'll hold it down. And that was, it's not a very heavy mineral, so that one will sustain its weight under that glue. And I've done this a lot, so, I kind of want it a little bit further up. It's a little farther back on the base. So I'm not going to give it a ton of time to dry. And so if you could see that, it came right off. It wasn't completely cured or anything like that. There's no damage to it or anything. You don't want to put a lot of force into any of this. So if you feel like you're forcing something, like, that's when you break stuff. So, but now we have an issue, right? We have just like a blob of glue on the base, but it's clear. You see how clear it is? It's just kind of mashed in because of where the mineral form was. But, if you let it dry enough without fully curing, you can get it off really easy just with a fingernail, and it doesn't leave any residue or anything like that. So I just pulled that off, and I'm going to go for it again here. And then I'll go ahead and mount it there. That's a little further forward, more of where I wanted it initially. And so I'll just hold it. Hopefully I've centered it correctly. Right, and so now we got that nice predominant chicken foot look that we were going for. Just kidding. But no, it's a beautiful calcite. They do look like icicles. I think the ice pocket was a really good term for it. They also, some of them look like unicorn horns because they almost look spiraled with the way it grows. It's really interesting. I have another one that maybe I'll show you during this video. But so that one's mounted, and then I'll go ahead and I'll mount this other one real quick. I'm not going to talk a lot because it's kind of already explained it. So I'm just checking my position, how I want it mounted, thinking about, how much glue I might need to use if I'm trying to utilize the glue to prop it up a little bit in the back. And I am on this one, so I know the glue needs to go here. I'm going to use a little bit more glue on that because I need it to hold it up in a way. So I'm going to let the glue dry while I'm holding it, and I'm using that to my advantage here. I'm holding it up off the base on the back side. So the glue, the only thing that's gluing it down is the glue's touching the mineral and the base. There's a lot of space in between though. Usually when I do that, I'll blow on it. That gives me the ability to have it like dry without, and do you see that? So I used too much glue, kind of globbed over on the back, but you can see this mineral is like propped up by the glue. So that's a cool little trick because in the front side you don't notice that at all, really. So that's a cool little trick. I'm gonna redo this one real quick before it's fully cured because that was too much glue. I'm gonna focus more on doing this than talking this time. So I'm still here. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. You know, I got the display that I wanted, kind of showing off the front of it. I don't know if these were the best minerals to use as an example of displaying, or this camera angle with how friggin' blurry it is, but yeah, there you go. You can see. And the reason why it's at this kind of awkward angle, instead of like up on its side or, you know, somewhere else, is because I want it to be able to fit into a 1-inch cube. This is what's called a thumbnail mineral and has a certain size range to it. It's supposed to be able to fit into a 1-inch cube for it to be considered one. So I went ahead and mounted it that way. I'll go ahead and pull this over here, show you what we did. So we now have these 3 minerals here. We mounted that one, we mounted that one, we mounted this fluorite. And it turned out pretty good. And now I wouldn't recommend doing this, like, if you're gonna unmount them and mount them a lot, like, I don't really recommend doing this. It's not really like a good solution. Not really good temporary solution, is what I'm trying to say. It's more of a permanent one. Once you do it, you're pretty much doing it permanently. You can get it off. What you could do is you could soak it in warm water. Not super hot water, just warm enough where it starts steaming. As long as the mineral is tolerant to water, and it doesn't affect the mineral, then you can kind of soften the hot glue a bit, and then, you know, take the mineral off. What else? Let's see. Yeah, making sure that you're gluing it at almost like at a point instead of a flat surface helps, to where it's kind of resting in the glue or on the glue. Because if you have it flat, glued flat to the acrylic, it is very hard to get off. So I mean, this isn't gonna like fall off on its own weight or anything like that. You can see I can wiggle it around and everything. That's because I glued it securely, and I've done this a few times. But it's just things to keep in mind. It just displays better, in my opinion, than putty. I think putty is just kind of ugly looking. But to each their own. Like, I used to only display things with putty, and I wouldn't hot glue anything because I just always thought, okay, well, I don't want to potentially ruin the mineral, which is a fair assessment, and I don't want to do anything permanent because I might change my bases, I might change what I do, and that's true too. Over time, you do. Like, at first I had some cheaper acrylic bases that were, you know, 20 cents each or 30 cents each, and they weren't very attractive. And then over time I graduated through a couple different base forms, and then I kind of wound up here where these are a bit nicer. So, you know, it's to each their own. I think I'm at a point in I'm at a point in collecting where I would rather just have things display better than worry too much about pulling them off their bases or reselling certain ones. Like, I kind of know what I want to keep and what I want to sell. So let me pause this for a sec. I'll show you the other calcite from this area, which is really cool. And I'll show you an example of a couple bases I've done that I labeled, so you can kind of see what they look like when they're actually done. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. So I just wanted to quickly just show you the other calcite from that area. How it looks, if I can get it to focus. It's really cool. It almost looks like it's a spiral. It's because it's growing at an angle where they're growing. It's like at a downward angle towards the center on both sides right now. And so you can kind of see, okay, see the downward angle towards the center, downward angle towards the center. And so when you have that and you have that refraction where you're looking through it, it makes your brain think it's like a spiral, which is really cool. So that's my little like unicorn horn. It's a pretty neat little icicle, if you will. So that was a cool one. And then here's like what the bases look like when they're finished, or at least when I finish them. It allows you to display them in orientations that, you know, might not be physically possible normally, even with tack. And so because this is a light piece on like a kind of like a feldspar, this aquamarine, you know, is really pretty, and it only fits in a 1-inch cube at this angle. And so this one's from Namibia. You see I have it labeled in the front there. I just use simple labels for these. It gets a little bit more complex on the tags when I do displays and things like that at shows. But really you can see, I mean, it's just kind of not a lot of glue being used here. But the thing doesn't weigh a lot. And I'm pretty careful. So as long as you're a careful person, you don't have any like, you don't keep these in a place like on a shelf, on an open shelf or anything. I have a closed off cabinet that I can display them in, so that's definitely a better situation. It's what I would recommend you do with your minerals. But here's a really nice rhodochrosite, absolute killer thumbnail of rhodochrosite. And I want to show you these in particular because they're mounted in slightly different ways. So you see there's 2 beads of glue here. I laid like a foundational bead of glue and then a second bead of glue because I wanted to prop it up a little bit. You see this quartz in the front is there, and it's kind of an obstruction. It's, you know, I don't want to break it off, but it is a bit of an obstruction while mounting it. But I was able to mount it in a way where it will fit into a 1-inch cube now and present very nicely, I think, from the front. You know, without having to alter the piece or anything like that. So that's a little sweet home piece from the Hedgehog Pocket. This piece here is a little Red Cloud Mine Wolfenite. One of my favorite pieces for Wolfenite that I have. I'm trying to catch the angle. It's got a cool little... I don't know if I can do it. It's got some cool little... There you go. Crystallography going on. But the reason why I pulled this one is I did something a little bit different. So I used a second acrylic block, which has been carefully, with, you know, just enough super glue. I mounted the acrylic block first to the acrylic base, let that dry thoroughly for I don't know, a couple hours maybe, and then I went back and I used a little bit of hot glue, if you can see that, to mount it to the stand in a way where it would present, you know, nicely and fill the space. Now this is not something you would want to do with such a delicate mineral like this, because the matrix is pretty delicate. It would probably break off if I tried to take it off. Potentially, I'm pretty careful, but unless it's a permanent thing you want. So this is a permanent mount for me. This piece has been in my collection for a little while. I really like it. And I've been to the mine a few times. I didn't mine this myself, but I have mined these before, and it's one of the standout ones for me. And then lastly, you also don't have to mount everything straight. So here's a pretty nice dioptase from the Cocoveld. I think it's Cocoveld. But, yeah, I think it might be mislabeled. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I can't remember if it's Namibia or what. But here's a nice dioptase crystal. Full kind of floater crystal. When I got this a few years ago, It was before the fines in the Republic of the Congo and stuff like that, and it was quite a standout piece. Nowadays, I think that there are some of this quality out, many of this quality out now. But anyway, point being here, I have this other little acrylic block super glued to this acrylic mount at an angle, and then I before I glued this block down, I sanded a notch using a file into that block. So I notched the block in the shape of the crystal, then I glued it to the base, then I let that dry, and I am just using a bit of mineral tack to mount this there. I didn't feel the need to hot glue this one down, so there's just a little bit of mineral tack in that notch just to protect the crystal from being scratched by any rough part of the acrylic or anything like that, and so I can mount it at the angle that I want to display it at. I'm sorry this has been a blur fest. I think it's literally just doesn't want to focus on this black background, and then it doesn't want to show you any detail on a white background, so I can't really win with this. But I don't know, hopefully that helped or made any sense. Let me know if you find any of this stuff interesting, if you want to see a collection review or anything like that. I love minerals. Been collecting for like 8 years now. Been to several mines, mined a lot myself. Not these particular pieces, but a lot of these items are kind of once in a lifetime finds. Like, you would be lucky if maybe once a year or once every 3 years something of this quality came out of this mine, potentially. Sometimes that's how it went. So very lucky to have these pieces. That's why they can kind of fetch a high price. This might be the most expensive piece I've ever bought, even though it's one of the smaller pieces I have in my collection, because I do collect some larger pieces. But I hope you found this interesting. This is Kevin with Minerals of Moria, MINERALSOFMORIA. Minerals of Moria. I can't even tell if I spelled that right or not. I'm not feeling too well today, but I figured I'd show you this because I'm bored. And I also go by Imagination Hobbies on YouTube. So I'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much and have a good day.